The Immortal Game by Aesthetic B. Chapter 11 The General. Seriously, Twilight says as he galloped after the Orange Knight. What do I call you? The unicorn ducked into a nearby bookstore, and Twilight was forced to follow. She had been following him through the streets of Canterlot for only a couple of seconds, and they were moving ever closer towards the conflict. Twilight heard a heavy rumbling from somewhere outside. The heavy shells lining the bookshop shook and rattled. The other unicorn smiled wickedly at Twilight from under his tousled brown mane. Keep music sort of unimpressive. I like it. But you have to have a name, don't you? Sir Unimpressive led them past the heavy-laden bookshelves to a door that was the back of the bookshop. Of course I have a name, he said, his smile never leaving his face. I just like yours better. He led her into a smaller street, a road Twilight was not familiar with. Most of the surrounding buildings were intact, and none of the bridgeways above them had collapsed. So Twilight had reasoned that the street had not experienced any serious fighting. No, the knight stated matter-of-factly. We stick close to the buildings and avoid drawing the attention of any troop on this. Got it? Twilight's head was still reeling from the magic drag. Meeting up with the Equestria loyalists was their ultimate goal, but she was supposed to meet her friends first. She hoped that every pony was okay. She considered for a moment just exactly what she was doing. Why am I following a stranger in a black robe? Because, Sir Impressive said as he lifted an eyebrow, puffed up his chest, of my natural charm and trustworthy appearance. With that, he took off down the street, hanging close to the storefronts as he galloped away. Twilight gave him a flat look before taking off after him. She wasn't a physically active pony, and the knight was at a grueling pace. It wasn't long before he had to stop and wait up for her. Twilight's lungs were burning by the time she caught up with Unimpressive. Why? Twilight masked between heavy breaths. Why are we running? There are no other ponies around. Sir Unimpressive's eyes widened, and Twilight was suddenly thrown to the ground as he struck her with a blast of telekinesis. She hit the cobblestones hard, and then looked up to see a knight erecting a quarter dome of red light in front of himself. A cluster of broken wooden beams collided with the shield just after it had appeared. A force of impact was enough to shatter the hard wood. Twilight grinned as she was shattered through the splinters and sawdust. Unimpressive battered two more incoming projectiles out of the air with red bursts of a moment field, then turned to Twilight. His expression was one of focus and rage. Inside! He shouted. Someone was trying to kill her. Her heart thundered in her chest as she found herself at a loss for what to do. She clumsily got to her hooves, then looked around dazedly. She was thrown to the ground as Unimpressive caused an incoming hunk of stone to explode in midair. What are you waiting for? He shouted. Run! The message finally got through to Twilight, and she turned and ran, pushing herself through the doorway of another shop. Once inside, she collapsed against the wall and began to hyperventilate, trying to figure out what to do next. She could die, right here in the middle of Canterlot. She could be struck by a block of wood or stone, and her skull would cave in. Or a unicorn puppet could punch a hole in her with one of the metal shards, or turn her ass with a bolt of energy. An earth pony could choke her to death, or crush her to a pulp. Pegasus could break her neck or drop her from such a height to turn her a smear on the pavement. It wouldn't be a noble sacrifice, or a tragic downfall. She would simply die, like Coconut only minutes ago. Frienders would wonder why she never came to meet them, slowly realizing they never would. Harmony would die with her. Titan would win. Celestia would perish as a mortal pony, and Luna would be left with a hopeless war. It was just a solid, simple, terrifying fact that Twilight couldn't focus on anything else. She put herself in danger before, but never alone. This was different. Celestia might have shaped Twilight to be a strategist. She might have ensured that Twilight knew the labyrinth, and that Twilight could organize and mobilize large groups of ponies she never would need to lead militia beneath a Canterlot. But the princess had never prepared Twilight for this. In her mind, Coconut jumped in front of Estine's blade once again. Her throat exploded with a blossoming fountain of crimson. She fell to the ground, and Twilight's fist blackened. What am I doing? She whispered to herself. She wasn't a war unicorn. She was a pampered student from Canterlot. What are you doing? Twilight noticed for the first time that Unimpressive was standing over her. Get up! We need to move! She stared at him dumbly. What happened to the... I killed them. Now the school. We're barely on the edge of this conflict. You killed them? Unimpressive tilted his head as he regarded her for a moment. Would it help if I told you they were puppets? Twilight bit her lip. I suppose. They were a puppet. Now, in the interest of not dying, so there you go. Twilight got up. Why is there so much fighting going on? Sir Impressive snored. Is that a serious question? Twilight was starting to develop a dislike of the other unicorn. Why wouldn't it be? He stuck his head out and began moving to the other side of the shop. You broke the barrier, kid. The other guys from Outer Canterlot are coming in, and there are plenty of ponies in the Inner Canterlot who want to get out. No pony knows how long the barrier is going to stay down, so every pony's making a run for it right now. We're covering them, so that ponies don't need to run to fleeing to civilians down the streets. They killed them just for trying to get out of Inner City? They reached the front of the shop, and Unimpressive looking through each of the windows, pulling blinds down with a hoof, and peering outside before moving to the next. Puppets only ever follow orders. There isn't a drop of equanimity in them. But who would order them to kill civilians? The knight gave a humorous laugh. You've never met the general, have you? Twilight felt as if blood turned to ice. Yes, she said softly. Yes, I have. Sir Impressive turned and regarded her seriously. Yeah, you look like someone who's met the general right now, all right. He turned back to the windows. In the inner city, he's a legend. You can fight the puppets. You can fight the truth ponies. And if you're me, you can even fight the cadets. But if you see the general, you'll run. Son of a bitch just kills for a living. He isn't a natural. There's only one pony who's crazy enough to fight him head on. He looked at Twilight, seeming to ponder something for a moment. Actually, the knight looked through another set of blinds once more, then nodded. All right, Sparkle. We're running to the greenery up to the left to our street. There's a little bit of fighting going on, so there'll be a click. I'll lead and draw their attention. You'll follow. What's going on out there? Isn't that where all the fighting is? Yeah, well, we tried the back way. Didn't work out too well. So I figured if we run to the conflict zone screaming, we'll fit in and nobody will notice us. Follow my lead. Are you crazy? I'm not going out there! Unimpressive leaned against the door, testing its weight. Danger to Twilight. Of course you are, he said with another wicked grin. You want to know why? Humor me. Because the only pony who stands their ground against the general is named Twilight Sparkle. Twilight felt her eyes widen in shock as her mouth drooped open. Before she could see anything in response, the knight had blown the door off its hinges and stepped into the street. Twilight marveled at what Impressive considered to be a little bit of fighting. Two bridgeways had collapsed, and puppets occupied the streets in droves. Loyalists were fighting from within, and atop the tall stone structures that characterized Inner Canterlot. Several of the red-maned unicorn puppets turned to the knight as the door exploded outward. He pointed to a hoof at another point down the road. Look! He said, the same as destruction! To the immense discredit of the puppets, most of them looked. Follow me! He cried as he took off across the battlefield. Twilight stared at him in disbelief. The unicorn was clearly quite insane. Fortunately, he also knew her mother. Twilight had little choice. She ran after him. Sir Impressive had been right about one thing. The puppets focused exclusively on him. Twilight watched as he deflected several flying shards of steel, then dodged a couple of 100 pounds of debris at his adversary, running all the while. He spun to knock a flying stone out in the air, grinning maniacally as it burst into a cloud of dust. Twilight ran after the knight as fast as she could, trying to keep her head low. She knew that if any of the unicorns turned her attention to her for even a second, it would be over. She had no way of defending herself, and Unimpressive was too busy blocking the shots they were aiming to pay attention to her. Her hooves beat against the ground, and breath came out of rough grass as she struggled to keep up with the knight. At last, he broke the door off of another structure and dove inside. Twilight followed, stopping to catch her breath in the relative safety of the building, as the knight began to bar the open doorway by piling up the furniture and debris. You know my mother? She gasped. She's one of you? Her, I know that. Upstairs! He jerked his head towards the building's ramps. Twilight followed up the ramp, her mind brimming with questions. Are they crazy? They'll be killed! Unimpressive looked at her over his shoulder. I think that's the idea. He reached the top of the ramp and galloped across the intact bridge to the upper floor of the adjacent structure. It was a hotel. Twilight followed, scurrying across the bridgeway as fast as he could manage for fear of being picked off. What do you mean, that's the idea? Unimpressive spoke as his hooves hammered down a flight of stairs on the ground level. Think, kid. What's the one thing your parents love the most in the world? The one thing they couldn't stand to lose. I'll give you a hint. They have two. And one of them's back in the Crystal Empire, too busy defending his lands against Titan forces to come here! Twilight paused at the top of the stairs. Your children, she said quickly. She'd been so caught up in her own problems ever since waking up, she hadn't thought about that before. Bingo, said Unimpressive. Another pony puppet walked into the room. Surf taps muffled by wrist-red carpet that adorned the ground floor. It stopped, obviously not expecting to encounter any pony inside. Then lunged to the knight. Unimpressive rolled to the side as he tore a wooden support away from the temporary banister, then plunged the makeshift weapon into the back of the puppet's skull. He twisted it, and the sickening, crunching sound of wood couldn't be heard before the puppet vanished. Twilight cringed. Unimpressive continued to speak as he led them through the dark interior of the hotel. The daughter didn't just die, you see. She was held down by the general as he made her into Titan's monster. He made sure everyone knew. Then the princess, who you saved from her own nightmare, she killed rather than set you free. Twilight shuddered. So they joined the loyalists. They broke, kid, plain and simple. Sad and angry don't begin to describe how they felt. But if it did, I say Midnight took the sad, and Velvet took the angry. They hate the general, they hate Luna, they hate Titan, and they hate Celestia. Twilight pushed through another door, and Unimpressive had to lay his horn so they could see in the darkened hallway. Celestia? Why her? Because if you wouldn't have stopped people, Titan wouldn't have wanted you in the first place. Because she put you in the line of fire, and then didn't come to rescue you. Because they gave her their 11-year-old daughter, and Celestia didn't keep you safe. That isn't... Twilight stopped. It was true. All of it was true. Celestia loved me. It wasn't her fault. Well, you can tell them when we meet them, can't you? Being the only real knight of our side, I taught them and a couple others how to play cast. None of them are very good, but us mascot talents are strong enough to get a fight to get away with it. Something wrong? Twilight went down flatly. I woke up yesterday from a month-long sleep. My friends have become an elite strike team working for Princess Luna. My parents have joined the rebels because they think I'm dead, and things keep trying to kill me. Yes, something's wrong! Unimpressive nodded slowly, then offered her a flask of whiskey once more. Twilight shook her head stiffly, and he shrugged before taking a long pull of the flask himself. Well, he said, at least I'm having a good day. From the darkness of a nearby doorway, another puppet emerged. It glanced at Twilight, and for once he managed to react in time. The puppet collided with a transparent violet barrier and slid to the ground as Twilight drew back in shock. Unimpressive drew the puppet down with a bright burst of energy. He then turned to her. When exactly were you going to tell me you had your magic back? Twilight had no idea she reacted so quickly. I didn't know until now. Unimpressive gave her an incredulous look. Magic drags are supposed to last for hours. You shook this one in minutes. No wonder you could break Imperium's barrier when all the other Loyalist ponies faded. Twilight looked down at her hooves. It's nothing, really. Why, you're sneaking into the hotel when you could probably take every puppet here. Let's go fight! He turned to go back the way he came. Stop! Twilight called after him. He stopped. We're not going to fight. Why not? Because I don't fight. Unimpressive gave her a puzzled look. Huh? I can't. I don't know how. Except she did know how. She read every word written in the power to destroy. It's easy, said the knight. You heard things with magic. You start by throwing objects around and just work your way up from there. You need a battle cry, too. Most loyalists use interchange between Celestia and Twilight Sparkle, so you can't use the second one. You go ahead and screaming works, too. I go for intimidation factor with mine. I'm not going to fight! He grunted, then continued working down the hallway. So it's a most thing, eh? You grow out of that soon enough. Twilight doubted she would grow out of her desire not to become a psychopathic monster. No, I won't. At last, when they came to a door at the end of the hallway, the knight turned off the light on his horn. He nodded to the now visible crack of light coming from the upper door. Puppets, he said quietly as they were thrown into near pitch blackness. What do we do? Easy way to the highlands forward. We fight. I'm not! Shh! He cut her off. In the darkness he heard the knight sigh. Shh, Twilight. You're right about one thing. I'm a knight, so I know something about having ideas. I serve directly under General Masterstroke, the commander of every soldier in Equestria. He instructs us, you see, from Princess Celestia. Specific instructions what to do as she was overthrown. Namely, overthrown by Nightmare Moon. Except when Titan returns. His team has a score to settle. He could never handle that Masterstroke was his superior, despite the fact that war was his special talent. He blamed the fact that Celestia disliked him. He was right, he did. So before Masterstroke gets to put his plan into action, his team skins him alive and hangs him from the palace gates. He paints the words resist behind him with his blood. Our new general has a thing for blood, you see. Twilight was suddenly aware of the fact he was standing in total darkness with a stranger. Why is this important? Because who in their right mind is going to try to lead a rebellion after that? You, she breathed. You were his second command. Not even close, kid. But I was the only willing to step up to the plate once Master Sook met his end. I used blade casting to a few unicorns with the talent to perform, trying to keep every pony organized. There's no pay, but at least now I get to drink on the job. And Celestia has specific orders for to resist as long as possible, no matter how hopeless things may seem. Because there's still hope. You're that hope, aren't you? The 6 element of harmony closed her eyes. Yes. Well, I have some bad news for you, kid. You've got power, and not just unicorn power, which you seem to have in spades. Real power! There's a reason half my royals scream your name when they toss in the banner. They'll be willing to die for your Sparkle. That's all on top of whatever you're supposed to have that's going to save us. More power, and power ideas don't work mix. You're wrong. I don't have to hurt others to do good. The burnt-out lamps of the hallway rattled around them as the building shook slightly. There was still a heavy banging going on inside. I don't disagree, the knight said softly in darkness. But how much good is going to go undone from your inaction? How are you going to justify your actions when the enemies you spare with your wrath turn around and kill countless ponies? How many innocent lives are going to pay for your selfish ideas? That isn't fair. The whole world isn't fair, Sparkle. Not since Titan. You wanted to go back to the way it was. You want peace and happiness. You can't hesitate to do what needs to be done. Twilight heard the rustle of his robe and the tinny noise of the lid being unscrewed with a flask of whiskey. He continued a moment later. With me, it's a couple here and there. I spend lives as little as I can, but I don't think I won't spend one to save 10. And I don't think I will be happy to kill another pony to stop him from killing me. So what? See, Twilight heard the insanity in her voice. You're saying the responsible thing to do is to become a monster? Sometimes we have to do bad things for the greater good, kid. The ponies on the other side of that door might be civilians. They might be on our side. They might just be puppets. But they also might be members of the Royal Army. Ponies who really signed up with Titan. And if they are, I'm going to kill them. They're real ponies. They deserve a chance. They're the enemy. They're on the side that strikes down civilians as they leave Eden City. Regardless of circumstance, they made their choice, knowing full well that ponies like me are trying to kill them. So that's it? They knew what they were getting themselves into? You're still not getting it, Twilight. Maybe I can't afford to do the right thing, but I can still hurt the ponies who do the wrong thing. I can still console myself for all the evils I had to do in the name of the greater good by taking a little darkness out of that world. They don't deserve anything more out of me. What they deserve is wrath. So what if I take a little joy from it? I can't help the way I feel. I'm doing this because it's necessary, not because I want to. Twilight was appalled. Righteous judgment? That's how you justify murder? Not judgment exactly. Ask me what the name of my blade is, Twilight. She heard the flash being tugged out of his robe once more. Twilight desperately hoped there weren't any living ponies outside that door. What? There was a hissing noise in the air. The front of the night was filled by a shaft of crimson light. The glow from the blade filled the hallway they stood in. Her feel sounded impressive, who stood in front of Twilight, his back to the doorway. The light from the blade reflected off his eyes, giving him a hellish red glow. Vindictive! He said harshly. Then, he turned and blew the next door to bits. Twilight cringed as she saw the interior of the room was filled not with puppet, but with ponies. From the way Sarah Impressive branded his blade, she judged they were enemies. She closed her knife as the vindictive knight let loose his battle cry. None of you are safe! After Titan's avatar was slain, there were no puppets left in the square. Luna stood alone at the center of the square, for Rainbow Dash had taken off as soon as the Pegasus learned Rarity and Twilight needed rescuing. Luna nodded detected. More than any pony, Rainbow Dash was impossible to give orders to sometimes. Instead, she surveyed her surroundings. Most of the outlying buildings had been heavily damaged. Titan left numerous dead ponies to bleed out on the stone ground. There were far more survivors than there were dead, though, and all of them were staring at her motionless. It did not unnerve Luna. She had been a princess for over 100 years before being imprisoned in the moon. She was no stranger to attention or battlefields. She faced them all, standing tall and doing their best to look regal and imposing, which, considering her century of practice and status as mistress of the night, was effective. Luna had no idea how loyalists would react to her presence, after all. They were supposed to hate her. Still, they had exercised good sense and helped her in the fight against the king. She looked impassively at the faces of the battle-worn loyalists, knowing full well that their loyalty was to her sister's crown and not hers. They looked back at the princess who had attempted to cast their world into eternal darkness. Then they bowed. Not all of them. Some simply stood and continued to stare. But the majority of fighters, one by one, fell to the ground and gestured of submission and respect. It was such a shocking and strange occurrence that Luna forgot what to do next. Rise! She commanded. They rose, Luna saw that none of them had the courage to approach her. So she strode to the mare who helped her earlier. "Tell me, who was the command?" she said, careful to phrase so it wasn't a question. "You sent him to rescue Twilight Sparkle." Luna frowned slightly. "Tell me where he will take her once he has her. To our hideout, most likely." "Take me there. And I need another rendezvous with my own troops and take them there as well." Another one of the loyalists spoke to her. "You aren't seriously talking about taking her to the hideout?" The mayor turned to him. "Of course I am!" she snapped. "You heard her. Twilight Sparkle is alive. Twilight Starlight needs to know." "Think about who you're talking to, Buttercup. That's Princess Luna!" "She saved your life not 5 minutes ago, you imbecile. Have you met her before? No. Good. So maybe considering she saved all our lives, broke the barrier, and brought Twilight Sparkle with her, you could play nice. That's what I thought." The mayor turned to Luna and smiled. "If you follow me, Princess." They took Luna to the Loyalist lair, which was, unsurprisingly, located in the labyrinth. "We may not know the entire thing," Buttercup called back to Luna, as she guided them to the maze by the light of her horn. "No pony does. But if the General and the Royal Army knew where we were, they would easily cross us. The thing is, they have no idea how to get here. You ever try mapping a three-dimensional maze with something as stupid as a puppet, when the maze itself is full of ponies who would gladly attack you? Tell me all." Luna had a dislike for some of the softer names ponies use nowadays. "Buttercup, how many loyalists are there?" "Oh, a couple hundred. Not much in the city of 75,000. But there's enough we could cause some serious damage when we need to. We'll stretch out over one big section into the maze, with a couple smaller outposts in some of the other sections. We try to map out as much as we can, but we're not even sure if it's one big maze that runs under all the Cantonat, or a couple hundred smaller ones. Was it here 1,000 years ago, Your Highness?" Luna realized that Buttercup was asking her a question. "No, Buttercup. Cantonat did not exist then. The capital was in Everfree." "Huh," Buttercup remarked. "Makes you wonder who built it, huh? You know, Princess, you have a powerful voice." Luna sighed inwardly. She just kept talking. Was this why Luna never got along with the public? She knew who built the Undercity, of course. It had been Celestia, in preparation for Nightmare Moon's return. While it was true Celestia had engineered Nightmare's defeat, and Luna's seclusion and freedom at the host of the elements of harmony, Luna's twin sister was hardly appointed to limit herself to one master plan. Luna had little doubt Celestia had ordered the construction of the underground maze almost a little less than 1,000 years ago. They expunged almost all records detailing its layout from pony history. Then, when the time came, should Nightmare Moon overtake her and rule Equestria, Celestia would still have an agent capable of showing dissent for the safety of the maze. The unfortunate duty had fallen upon the intellectual and reluctant unicorn Twilight Sparkle, whom Celestia taught not only the layout of the maze, but the acumen of warfare she would need to employ it. It was an incredible feat, Luna reflected, that Celestia had essentially been able to turn her star pupil into a weapon without Twilight ever realizing it. That was the true genius behind her ancestor's plan. With over 1,000 years of practice, her twin had put decades of formulation into a backup plan. One that, when it had turned out was unneeded, was never found out by his subjects. Except now. Titan had returned, and Celestia's pupil was thus not just the only mortal pony alive to have read Ponies Make War, still a stupid title, of this Luna was certain, as Twilight possessed only 2 copies, but she also read The Power to Destroy. Celestia loved her sister with a powerful ally indeed. Luna also knew that Celestia loved Twilight Sparkle, loved her like a mother loves a daughter. What must she have felt was he notably planted the seed of a military commander in the impressionable young filly's mind. More importantly, what must Twilight Sparkle feel now, upon realizing that Celestia had played her as a piece in the Immortal game? "We're here!" They come to a beaten steel door, set in the side of the dumb hallway. Buttercup used her magic, and the door swung open with an objectionable creak. Luna was trying to make an impression, so she kept her face an expressionless mask as she stepped imperiously through the doorway and into the subterranean headquarters. She took the lair in. The Loyalist headquarters had only been used for quite some time. Like their own base of operations in the labyrinth, they had selected one of the larger, 2-story rooms as their command center. The floor was covered by cheap brown carpeting, and torches cast a ruddy light from the featureless stone walls. The center of the room was dominated by a heavy round table and both figures and maps, both printed and hoof-drawn. More centuries-old metal doorways led to what Luna assumed were the other sections of the Loyalist hideout. The reason to stand in the hideout was accessible, thus escapable from the many different approaches in the Carolina Undercity. Luna took all of this in, as well as the half-dozen ponies seated around the table. She noted a dull white mare at the table, taking her in with a wide-eyed look of shock. The mare, who looked very strangely familiar, stared at the princess for only a couple of seconds before her shock melted away to reveal unbridled fury. With a flash of light, the enraged mare stood before the curious princess, a length of incandescent amethyst fluctuating in the air before her. She swung it at the alicorn. Luna was liquid. In one smooth motion, gifted by the grace of over a century of combat prowess, she ducked under the amaranthine weapon, and simultaneously pivoted on her forelegs to strike the mare in the chest with her hind. She spun around to face Buttercup, as her blade-wielding assailant was thrown backwards, with just enough force to daze her. Luna split her blade-casting robe into a swarm of wiggling amorphous bats, which rushed the unicorn before turning into a big black web pinning her to the wall. She continued to pivot along her front hooves, as she hammered her unicorn into Nadir. Her blade materialized as he completed her full circle. Level with the mare, she had descended across the room less than a second before. Luna stood facing the room, wearing a set of jet black, pristine armor. Alicorns cast blades out of nothing, and thus did not require blade-casting harnesses. She was almost a half a head taller than any pony present. Her eyes were glowing, and the air around her crackled as her formless mane either spun frantically. She had little doubt she could destroy every pony present. That was not her goal. She had realized who her assailant had been, and why she had been attacked. The Loyalists truly did not wish to kill her. They were merely assaulting her for the crimes they falsely believed she had committed. Luna could unleash death and destruction in spades, true, but again, she had another goal in mind. She thought about it for quite a while. It was the most perturbing predicament. How would she get the Loyalists to trust her? How could she bend the cell of the rebellious ponies to her will, so he used them as a resource in aiding the elements of harmony? The answer come to her, examining the tiny figurine of Celestia that she kept close to at all times. Luna might not have Celestia's patience, or her depth of planning. She was still over a century old. Of late, she had not gotten many chances to use her immortal wisdom and intellect. Luna was just another piece. The time had come to play her part. It wasn't make her move. Yes, I just played the parts. Pieces made moves. And while Luna was certainly about to do some acting, there was a reason why it was called the Immortal Game, and not the Immortal Play. Between the princess and Twilight's mother stood a cobalt stallion, wielding a blade of similar Crotos. "Treachery, Sparkle!" Luna hissed in accusation as her eyes began to glow. "This doll truly think of God, so voiceless!" When replacing the floor, Twilight's mother brought herself on her forelegs. Her husband spoke. "You know who we are?" Luna glared at the couple with as much menace as she could, believing Equestria turned the wire vapor around her into frost. No pony spoke, as he drew the moment of silence out as long as he could, ensuring that every one of the Loyalist commanders got a good look at their warrior goddess. The moment lingered, but before it could pass, Applejack burst through one of the solid metal doors that dotted the walls. She was in an Earth Pony warplate, and the Barding chained and clapped loudly as the mare took 2 steps into the room. The throws into sight of Princess Luna and the Loyalists. Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, Rainbow Dash, and Rarity filled the room behind her, along with the disgruntled stallion who had been sent to collect them. Rarity's coat was covered in matted blood. Luna watched Applejack comprehend the scene before her. "What a tarnation!" Rarity's blade was assembled in a heartbeat. Pinkie Pie crossed her forelegs behind her back, brought them forward with a click, and armed 2 of her blades. Rainbow Dash was standing next to Princess Luna, as though she had been there the whole time. Wings extended, 1 hoof off the ground. Fluttershy let out a soft, "Oh my." By now, the other ponies had been seated around the table stood, but it was clear that they were woefully outclassed. Even Twilight's mother, a magical talent, had came at Luna in the most amateur way imaginable, which led the princess to suspect that the mare knew nothing about blade casting. Luna needed to establish authority over the newcomers. "Say no words!" she ordered simply, using her outdoor voice. Then turned to the group of Loyalists who were not Twilight's parents. "Tell me, who is in charge here?" The way he spoke the words made it abundantly clear there was no way in shape or form a request. "Don't answer her!" Twilight's mother cried as she got to her hooves and recast her blade. "That monster killed my daughter!" All at once, all of Twilight's friends opened their mouths to speak. Say no words! Luna said forcefully. Even Rainbow Dash obeyed. Luna turned back to the Loyalists, focusing on an aged Pegasus who was scared to death. Name thy commander. The Pegasus straggled backward. The smoke immediately as he failed to meet her eyes. We have no commander, Princess. Well, the General Masterstroke. The dead Princess. Who replaced him? No, Pony, he said meekly. We came to the decision jointly. There is no general anymore. The stallion who had brought the element bearer spoke. Despite being pinned to the wall by 5 of Vorpal's diamonds. Don't answer her questions, noble! That's Princess Luna! From behind her, Luna heard Buttercup's muffled protests. She allowed the thick strands of arachnoid darkness to slink back into the floor and flow up around her host to reform into her blade-casting robe. Buttercup sputtered and gasped. She saved our lives. Twilight! Starlight! Attack her! Starlight. Twilight's mother's name was Starlight. I swear! Sundays reading a fanfic that's about those several years ago is hilarious. Of course I attacked her. She killed my daughter! Luna dipped into unicorn magic and slammed the door behind her, cutting off Buttercup mid-protests. None of the Loyalists seemed to notice. The princess obviously does not come in peace, protested Nerf Pony. Starlight attacked first! With good reason, she killed Twilight Sparkle. Twilight Sparkle was past saving. I'm sorry, Midnight, but it had to be said. If you were a father, why don't we let the princess talk? Maybe as she put the blade away. Luna watched them argue impassively, thankful that her team had the sense not to say anything to go along with her plan, despite not knowing what she was up to. Loyalists argue in circles, shouting at each other and occasionally suiting Luna or one of her ponies a nervous look. It was clear they were not going to come to a conclusion, that they were not going to trust Princess Luna. Luna watched as one of Rainbow Dash's ears twitched. She saw a glance at Pinkie Pie, who was tense in the scene to be caught by something else. The princess had been looking for these signs. She tuned into her own hearing, senses enhanced by her Pegasus magic, to hear a voice echoing from outside the chamber. She prepared to deliver her master stroke. You never told me! A familiar voice accused faintly. You never, not even once, thought the baby mentioned that we were going into the labyrinth. I know the whole thing by heart. We could have bypassed the fighting entirely. By now, several of the arguing ponies picked up on the approaching voices and fallen silent. Luna opened the door behind her to let Buttercup back in. A familiar, slightly slurred voice entered Twilight. You didn't even bring it up. You could have brought it up, you know. Like, I could go anywhere I please, avoiding all the danger. Want to do that instead? And I would have been like, yeah, let's do that. Sounds good. I didn't bring it up? What did you expect? Good afternoon. My name is Twilight Sparkle, and I can circumnavigate the Caroline City and the labyrinth! That's how I greet all strangers. At the sound of Twilight speaking her own name, every pony in the room fell deadly silent. Faintly, Starlight and her husband looked like they were hearing a ghost. Her team parted, and Twilight entered the room with the blade caster Luna had sent her after her earlier. She took in Luna, who had Nadir raised, Rarity, who had some pony pinned to the wall, and other friends in combat stances. She saw the group of loyalists at the table, who had ceased arguing to shamelessly and openly stare at her. Most of all, she saw her parents. Luna made her play. Beloved subjects! Her voice smashed the silence like a sledgehammer, shattering an ice sculpture. She used the word beloved the way Terra might say mercy. I deliver to thee the last hope of our species, a mare of considerable renown. You may have heard of her. Twilight spoke softly. Mom? This was Luna's game. She might be able to win the loyalty of a few ponies on the battlefield, but the simple truth was that ponykind was never going to unite under her. The twice-proved savior of ponykind in all of Equestria. Dad? Luna needed a unified, cohesive rebel faction. That wasn't going to happen by her alone. She could continue to be what they expected her. A warrior goddess, a force of fear, an uncompromising dictator who had once tried to plunge the world to night. But now, they have assurance that she was on their side. Was war more boistering than setting the demon you feared upon your enemies? Prize people of my sister, Her Royal Highness Princess Celestia, also the most powerful unicorn in the world. Each of Twilight's parents had tears running down their face. Her father found words first. Twilight? They would unite, but not under Luna. Under the known quantity. Under the closest thing they had to Princess Celestia, their beloved ruler. Under a pony whose honor was completely free of the ugly stains that marred Luna's. Most importantly, under a pony who happened to be under Luna's influence. Master charged this, a compass leader, the only pony alive who could navigate the counter-land defense, the newly appointed leader of my own militia, your daughter, delivered to you, back from the dead. Twilight was hugging her parents, her back to Princess Luna. Luna caught Starlight's eyes, and the mother gave Luna a look of gratitude so deep and profound that Luna knew she would never be able to fully appreciate it. For the princess was not a mother herself. Luna turned to the table of loyalties. It was all about posturing. General Twilight Sparkle. Didn't I tell you? Tara's conversational tone rang throughout the room as we went about our task. Some pony broke one of Titan's magic bubbles. They shattered it, really. I told you about the baddiest, right? Celestia, occupied, did not respond to the question. In any case, I imagine your daddy is not too pleased. I'm supposed to find out how Luna was able to undo his magic. He's under the impression no pony but you could do such a thing. What else were you supposed to tell me? Tara brought a hoof to her chin, but whether she was contemplating the table before her or her own question, Celestia couldn't know. Ah! She said at last, making a selection. You're supposed to tell me how you beat Nightmare Moon in Discord. If Titan really cared, he could tear the information from your mind, of course. But he doesn't like making the trip out here. Remember that time I hit an artery? Tara got too sloppy one day. Celestia thought she was going to die. Instead, her mother returned to her father in tow not 10 minutes later. Titan closed the wound with magic, as though the feat weren't blatantly impossible. Scolded his wife and left. In any case, Tara carried on, it's obvious you're here to just keep me occupied. Doesn't actually care about the information, being undefeatable and all. That was her father's mistake. How could an Alicorn of 3,000 years be so hopelessly arrogant as to think himself invincible? Titan was a greater spellcaster than even Celestia had been. The Alicorn wove magic with the meticulous care and patience of a master crafts pony. Still, if there was a pony capable of undoing its work, it would have to be Twilight Sparkle. Not even Princess Luna could master sheer force of talent possessed by the element of magic. It meant that Twilight was alive. There could be no explanation. If Twilight was alive, then there was hope. Not just a distant hope either. A real, immediate hope to something that ponykind could reach out and touch. They would not have to suffer for decades under Titan's reign like they had with Discord. Also meant that Twilight was going to learn just what lengths Celestia had gone to protect her kingdom. And Twilight would learn that her beloved mentor treated her like a daughter, played her a piece in the Immortal game since she was 11 years old. Twilight would despise her. Finally, it meant Celestia could no longer be patient. Her head rolled aside from one to another. You once told me, she managed weakly, that alicorns came in pairs. Tara snorted derision. We are not going to talk about the sunshine. Celestia persisted nonetheless. Don't call me Sunshine, she grunted. So what happened? Why are you so much younger than your husband? Tara regarded Celestia coolly as she slapped her daughter across the face with telekinesis. You're to not ever ask me questions, Celestia! This you know! Celestia looked back up at her mother, face numb. A dull ache throbbed in her cheekbones, but they weren't broken. Did he lock you under the world for a couple millennia, just like your daughters? Another slap. Silence! Ian Pottenmare coughed. Haven't seen a lot, huh? One of Tara's mental implements came to hover just under Celestia's collar. There was a sound similar to a pony biting into an apple, followed by the former princess's scream. Celestia carried on. You go on and on about how beautiful you are, how every pony loved you. Well, you never sang to me, Tara, and I'm your daughter. With a crash, Tara finally upended the stone table and brought every single one of her tools to hover before the broken princess. You aren't his wife. You're his bruiser. You aren't a queen. You're a thug. That's what he sees in you. Not beauty or value, muscle. Every pony in the world despises you, even your own daughters. Real rage boiled behind Terra's eyes as she snapped Celestia's jaws shut. You don't want to say what you're about to say, sunshine! Her grip loosened, and Celestia managed to convincingly mimic a smile as she looked into her mother's eyes. He doesn't love you, she said triumphantly. A baleful shriek tore its way out of Terra's mouth as the Queen of the World sent every implement soaring towards Celestia in an assault that would surely kill her. This was the moment, the time when Celestia put her entire face behind the act of lying. She had swallowed lightly, parted her lips, widened her eyes, tilted the edges of her mouth into something that was barely a smile. She looked at the warm blades coming towards her with a hope for release, and Terra saw her expression. The Queen barely set out her tools before they turned Celestia into a pony pincushion. You! She breathed. You're trying to get me to kill you. Celestia hung her head. You want to die. You've probably been preparing the words you need to send me over the edge now for weeks! Terra was silent beside Celestia, muzzle in the fallen monarch's ear. Clever girl. The Queen turned away and began to reorganize the tools of her trade. Sadly, she chuckled softly, not clever enough. It was hours later that Terra left to perform her duties. Celestia could not have given the exact time, as she no longer knew the exact position of the sun. She never developed the intelligibility of time without it, as she reasoned she would never have the need. Terra had been extremely foolish. Her newly spliced mind fought well after she had gone. One would think that being almost 1,000 years could maintain her composure, but then Celestia had also worked out slowly just what to say. Who could have thought that Terra's self-worth consisted of almost entirely the fact that she was loved? Loved no less by the very kings that she was portrayed. Perhaps her betrayal had merely been an attempt to prove herself to her older husband. The thought was worth investigating later. Her mind marveled at the fact Terra believed she wanted to kill herself. If Celestia wanted to die, she could have found a much more competent way of accomplishing the task. Terra believed seen through the play. But in reality, it was simply a much greater set of moves. Such was Celestia's prerogative. No, they didn't want to kill themselves. Her goal was much more ambitious. Terra believed her powerless, but the Queen knew very little when it came to power. Celestia's third mind took the body, which was in very poor condition. It sifted the hidden blade so it pressed against her hoof. That was what they had accomplished. First they played Terra's rage, assuring us she was unloved. Then they played her pride. Terra was overjoyed at having thwarted Celestia's attempted suicide. Rage and pride were two things Terra had in spades. Celestia had blinded her with them. Terra had not noticed she was one of her precious little implements. It was a dull thing. It took Celestia some time to cut through the straps they bound him to the wall. They fell to the floor, then stood. They could stand. They had their biggest worry, that with their body in the state it was in, they wouldn't be able to function. Certainly, her third mind felt intense pain, but after a quick diagnostic, Celestia was determined they were suffering from nothing crippling. They awkwardly limped over to Terra's upturned table and examined her options for weaponry. Second mind flattened the strong emotional response she had looked upon the tools. They needed to think objectively. She had no clue when Terra was going to return. Her mother was completely unpredictable. Celestia was taking several enormous risks by attempting to escape with limited information they possessed. But even if Terra did not return, they still had no idea where they were, or whether there were other guards around. But Twilight Sparkle was alive. Celestia was not going to wait for a perfect opportunity. Twilight would need them. They would take the risk. They would always take that risk. They agreed upon a long blade meant for carving that curved wickedly to a needlepoint. The third Celestia flipped into her mouth. The chamber had no doorway, so it was easy for Celestia to check around the corner with the reflection in the blade. They found one earth pony puppet in a stone hallway to her left, and that was it. Celestia's first mind pondered for a moment why Terra would only have a single earth pony to guard her. The Queen could conjure puppets at will. It seemed much too easy. Still, they had no other direction to travel but forward. Terra was well known for her arrogance. The third mind stumbled to the hallway, brandishing the blade between her teeth. The earth pony saw them and took a man in charge. They expected this. Celestia was in no physical condition to fight an earth pony head-on, so they simply observed. They calculated each and every one of the earth pony's possible angles of approach, the way the third mind would counter each of them so as to quickly slay the minion. They eventually selected a course of action that left no room for failure. The third mind simply spun and felled the puppet as it neared. The puppet charged, but Celestia took the brunt of the blow with a shoulder. and the puppet pushed its own neck into the blades he held in her mouth. As they crashed to the floor, the princess worked the blade so as to ensure a kill. The puppet dispersed. Celestia unsteadily got back onto her feet and rearmed herself. Then they proceeded down the hall. The first and second minds were immediately struck by a sense of familiarity before they had made it halfway. It didn't take them long to determine what the source was. They used to live here. This was the palace of the royal pony sisters in the Everfree Forest. Their escape had thus done much easier. The strain of maintaining a triple consciousness was weighing on the malnourished princess, so they merged back into a whole. Celestia was glad that Terra had not thought to deprive her of sleep. Her mental capacities would have been crippled. She checked around the corner to find another Earth Pony guard. This one with its back to her. It was a simple matter of sneaking up behind it and driving her blade to one of 6 kill points located on the back of a pony's skull. Terra had taught her well. Celestia remained the layout of the castle and knew exactly where she needed to go. She half walked, half limped down a spiral staircase as slowly as she could, keeping an eye out for more puppets. She would not go directly to Ponyville. The journey was not a long one, but it would take her long enough that Terra would return before she had made it. The queen would undoubtedly scour the forest between Ponyville and the ruined castle. Instead, Celestia would travel inward, toward the dark heart of the forest. She wouldn't actually approach the heart. That would be suicide. Celestia intended to loop back around to Camelot. She knew enough to make the denizens of the Everfree leave her alone. She could forage enough to survive with. First, she needed to get clear of the broken down palace. Terra could have had puppets in the air above the ruined palace, so Celestia made her way downward toward the moat. It was a little more than a glorified ditch now. And if she were to look closely, she could see a cave with the Tree of Harmony. That was the best chance of getting out with being spied from the air. She momentarily split her mind once more to deal with the pain that came rolling around the dirt while covered in bones, then crept down along the ditch, hoping she would go unsighted thanks to her camouflage. Her hope was in vain. Less than 20 meters away from the edge of the forest, she was brought face first to the ground by a Pegasus puppet. Her heart thundered in her chest as she squirmed weakly under the Brutus minion. It stood atop her with a hoof on the back of her neck, pressing her face into the dirt. It pinned all but one foreleg with its limbs. In her weakened state, Celestia was powerless against the puppet. No, she thought forcefully. She would not allow herself to be captured to those so close to freedom. She thought about her subjects, who had been victim to Titan's reign for over a month. All of them had been forced into her father's nightmarish idea of a world, thrust into a place where only way of life was war and violence. The thought made her angry. The thought made about the upturned stone table in the back of the palace, the plethora of teeming instruments of torment scattered across the floor. She thought about Terra, smiling her beautiful smile as she chose which of them to use. The thought made her terrified. She thought about Twilight, a young mare who had become responsible for the fate of their world, who suffered a fate worse than death simply because she had been close to Celestia. The thought made her ashamed. Celestia did not scream because she didn't want to attract attention. She simply lashed out with her free foreleg, as hard as her withered and broken body would allow her to. His broke knee dragging into the back of her neck. She knew enough to hit the puppet exactly where she was supposed to. Surprised, and let out a groan of pain. Celestia turned to see not a puppet, but a chestnut-coated Pegasus of perhaps 30 years with a yellow mane. Her attacker was a living, breathing pony, one of the subjects he'd sworn to protect, except she wasn't his ruler anymore. Titan was. She had lost her knife, but was a poor substitute for Zenith anyway. The Pegasus recoiled exactly as he determined he would. Celestia threw her shoulder back and pulled her legs in with the right amount of force to free her from its grasp. She struck out with one hoof and regained his balance, hitting him just above the hinge of his jaw. His mouth sprang open, and Celestia stuffed her other foreleg down his maw. A look of shock crossed the Pegasus' face, as Celestia pulled herself close to him, bit into his mane, and pressed her free foreleg over his nostrils. She would not go back to the endless taunting and torture. She would not be forced to remain idle while her people suffered under her father's reign anymore. She would not be powerless. Celestia was a player in the Immortal game, and this world would be a paradise for ponykind. The Pegasus tried to make some noise to warn the other guards, but Celestia knew what she was doing. She was physically weaker than he, but she had pinned his head under the weight of her entire body. He tried to pin her forelegs away. When it fell, he beat at her, flapped his wings uselessly. He bit it down, but Celestia did not relent. What was this minuscule iota of pain when measured against the totality of her experiences? What one pony life measured against the fate of an entire species? Not powerless! She uttered as her victim stopped moving. Never powerless! Terra had been clevered to trust true pony guards. Almost worked. Almost stopped her. Celestia dragged the corpse into the everfree forest and hid it. She did not have the dead Pegasus mark her passage, then set off through the brush towards the dark heart of everfree forest, refusing to stop for the rest that her body cried out for. She wanted to cry out with joy at having escaped. She wanted to break down and weep for the misguided pony she had slain. She wanted her legs to stop hurting, and food to eat other than the bitter violets of Everfree. She wanted the sun. She wanted to be a god again. Almost 2 hours later, Celestia was curled up in a poorly made shelter, absent-mindedly rubbing a foreleg, despite the fact it had been clean for an hour. That was when lightning split the sky, when the earth shook, and storm clouds coalesced to release a torrential downpour of rain. It all happened within seconds. Celestia considered her mother's rage. Terra had plenty of rage. Celestia would have said anything to get off her mother and try to kill her. What she had chosen were the words she didn't love you. Without Celestia to entertain her, Terra would be spending an awful lot of time with her husband. Except now Terra could fixate on Celestia's words. So you have to wonder what exactly made her Titan's wife. She would begin to resent him. Celestia was getting soaked, but it was warm enough out so he didn't mind. The rain was almost soothing where it didn't strike her burns. Alone in the everfree forest, the fallen princess felt a moment of peace for the first time as she slid Terra and herself back onto the board of the Immortal game. Celestia was back!